Okay, welcome to Web290 PHP. I'm going to go over week 1 on getting started with the class. Again, this class is online, and so let's go ahead and begin. When you log into the class through Eagle navigation points here, you'll log in and go to this task area. The task area actually gives you a breakdown and milestones of everything that's due from this week on. So you can look at that. As you complete tasks, they'll be checked off here. So you can check that periodically. Up here at the top is a breadcrumb of access to the site. Calendar, lessons. Communicate is where you'll email. Lessons is where you'll find all your assignments. Calendar is where you can look at all the due dates coming up. And I'll be adding an iTunes U and a grade in here as well. So let's go ahead and click on the Lessons tab. I sent you an email already, and in the email referenced getting started with Web290 PHP. But let's go ahead and go over these documents here first before we read anything. This document here, getting started with Web290 PHP, is just that. Helps you get started with all the programs you need to install, or program you need to install, whatever the case may be for you. Course documents has everything about PHP in here, how to set up my PHP MySQL, textbooks, setting up your web host, some helps for PHP. If you're interested in setting up your web host online at home for free, you can do that as well. This one's a little bit more advanced, setting it up at home, but you can do it. Data files, and then weekly labs, and then the Web290 course site. So let's go right into week 1. It tells us in week 1 to read and follow the instructions in the getting started, and then post your full name in the title here and your website URL that you'll set up. In just a second, I'll show you how to do that. And then once you've done that, you'll submit. So again, full name and your website that you've created. And the website is actually going to be used each week, starting with week 2, on posting your homework. So if you actually click on this Getting Started link, it brings you to that Getting Started document. The course site, Web290. These are last semester's students that are still in here. I'll be replacing them with you guys this week. At the top is homework source code from week 2 on. And the way I have it set up in here is, for instance, next week, this is what week 2 application is going to look like, PHP application. And then that week's compressed file source code. So you'll have an example for that week, and also the original source code for that week for the take-home homework. The other one each week, most weeks anyway, you'll have a practice lab that is in direct correlation with the homework, and again you'll have a online example and also a downloadable source code. PHP Resources is just that. This is the online text resources, the textbook for the course, how to go in and build my SQL database, PHP, XML, Ajax, stats, and scripts. Before I have a chance to get all these on the right side replaced, you can go through and look at these from last semester. And over here on the left is some prior final semester or finals for prior semester students. So most of the below documents are going to be found in course documents that I've already showed you in the lessons tab. And I'll click on it just one more time to make sure. So most of these documents are going to be found here in the course documents area. So read about PHP course first. That is again found in course documents. It goes over the course, and this course basically covers the basics of PHP and MySQL design setup, database setup. You will be creating a PHP website for the course, both for homework, and then also you will be creating a final site. In weeks 1 through 12, you'll have multiple exercises, both practice and also take-home homework. As a reminder, the only exercises due each week are located under the section heading Take Home. The in-class labs are not graded, so I will not do not want you to link to these in the Dropbox. In addition, I've included some source code solutions at the bottom of each week's folder. Weeks 13 through 15, you'll be creating a personal or company PHP site for your final. It'll cover a SQL database, so 12 or more tables, user interaction, an image site, form validation, a message board, user personalization, and you can also have an e-commerce module. So that's the About Me. Now, one of the things you want to do also is download, if you have a PC, you're using this semester Notepad++, which is free. If you have a Mac, Text Wrangler is a 2. These are the two development platforms we're going to be using to write our code. Now, there are other ones out there, but I'd rather use these because they don't fill in anything for you, and you type the code, and so it's going to be easier for you to, in the long run, to use these two applications. So again, PC, Notepad++, Mac, Text Wrangler. Bookmark these 3 websites. You'll be using those throughout your week by week take home and also practice assignments. Hardback textbook is here. Source code can be downloaded here, and this is some online examples from the book. You will need to read and perform setups for PHP and MySQL. The one I recommend is number 1. Tells you exactly what to do. Follow the examples here under number 1 as far as installing. And we do have a weekly podcast. It'll be posted in iTunes U plus on YouTube. The reason I do that is YouTube allows us to embed it in each week's lesson folder. iTunes does not, but I do it in both locations. The quality on iTunes usually is a little bit better than YouTube, so that's why I do it on both. But some students use only the YouTube embedded version and not iTunes. But I would ask you to subscribe to the course podcast anyway. Step 6, register a free web host on this site. When you go to this site, to register, you're going to click on sign up. And you want to, unless you have your own domain, which most of you are not going to, you're going to choose the second one, a free subdomain. In here, you can type in as you type in your suggested domain, what you suggest, it'll tell you as you go through here if that one is available or not. Okay, you might want to try what I just typed in, which is your first and last name all put together, but you don't have to. You can be creative if you want to. Put in your full name, email, password. You have a CAPTCHA that you have to fill in, just this text here. A lot of websites use now. Check this and create my account. Once you're through, I'll go ahead and log in with mine real quick. You'll end up with a URL that you're going to put in week 1. Okay, so there's my domain here, my website, web290.comoj.com. And there's my test one there. So that URL, you'll copy that URL and keep that in the computer's memory, because you will be submitting that in week 1. So for week 1, all you need to do is actually set up your website, get a domain name, URL. Starting next week, I'll show you how to upload your week-by-week homework into your website. Step 7, create a simple homepage. Most of you have had Web 101. If you haven't, there are resources online to help you on creating a simple homepage. You can use Dreamweaver, HTML. You'll create a folder lab named Lab with subfolders in your XAMPP folder for each assignment. When you do install XAMPP, there will be a folder called htdocs in XAMPP. You can put a file in htdocs called default.html, and in this directory you can access it on your local host on your computer with this URL, or you could just type in localhost as well. Now, the web structure example for XAMPP is XAMPP, and then you'll have htdocs. You'll create a folder in htdocs called lab, and then maybe a final folder. And then in each week's or each lab, you'll have subfolders, week 1, week 2, so on and so forth. Here's an example website that a student did last semester. They've got broken down week by week, all the way down to the final site. So that's an example design layout you could use if you want to. In fact, for this site here, it even has the HTML code that you could use if you wanted to, which is actually going to be this code right here. If you wanted to borrow this template for your website, it's set up as frames, has a menu on the left, home on the right, and so if you wanted to use that, you may use that. Pretty clean, straightforward site. And then finally, step 8, fill out the About Me. So going back to week 1, you read and follow the instructions that we just read in getting started. You've set up your website in 00 web host. It'll give you that URL for your website. And you're going to put in your full name here. and then you're going to put in your website domain name, and submit. Once you've submitted successfully, it'll give you your name, what time you submitted your file, and you are finished with week 1. So again, just to recap a little bit, for this week on the getting started, you'll download and install Notepad++ or Text Wrangler. Bookmark these 3 websites. Make sure you've purchased your copy of the textbook, Beginning PHP, Apache, MySQL Web Development. Read and perform and set up PHP and MySQL. Subscribe to this course podcast on iTunes U. Register for a free web host at 000webhost.com. Create a very simple web page or home page, and this step here is only going to be on your local host for this week. Next week you will be uploading this to your site, but for right now, just put it on your local host and play around with it to get just a real simple, basic home page, kind of like the one I gave you an example of Brian's here from last semester. It doesn't have to be as fancy as this one, but again, if you wanted to borrow this template for your site, that's fine. Again, to borrow it within your browser, just right-click, view page source. Here's the actual HTML code. The code here at the bottom is code that 00webhost puts in, so you don't need to use that code. But here's the actual HTML code. He's got a menu page and a home page. I'll show you. So there's a menu page, and he's got buttons in here for each one of the pages, and you can actually view the source on that as well. This one's a little bit more complicated, but he's got everything in here already. The one thing, if you do borrow this, he's got images for each one of the weeks that will not show up for you, so you'd have to replace that with your own images. This one here is pretty straightforward. This is just a menu page that he uses for the default page for the week for the website. Okay. Then fill out the About Me. We skipped over that a little bit here, but the About Me is right here above week 1. In here, as you can see, Sean's already posted. You'll just basically give us some information about yourself. Since it is online, it's kind of a nice way for everybody to get to know each other. Name you go by, favorite food, favorite movie, hobbies, why you're taking this course. You'll click New Post, answer these questions, and type in your first and last name in the title field. Paste questions into the new post, these questions down here, and answer them, and then reply to at least 2 other people's posts. So that concludes week 1, Web290. You got a little bit to do this week, but go over all the documents that we've went over here in the podcast. We didn't go over each one of these, but you can definitely go through all these. If you do have any questions, Q&A discussion type questions, you can post them here. You can post and reply to course and non-course related questions here. And this is a good thing to start. So if you have a computer question, politics, welcoming everybody back to the semester, whatever it is you want to put in here, I would ask students to, even if you're not posting a question here, to maybe check this at least once a day, just to see if there's new posts. And you can reply and help each other on this one as well. So that's what that one's there for, on that discussion board. So again, week 1 is what we're doing this week, getting XAMPP installed, getting your website set up, getting your software downloaded for your development, whether you have a Mac or PC. Mac is going to be Text Wrangler, PC, Notepad++. And then next week we'll actually start on our very first PHP lessons, and we're going to be going over PHP variables and operators. Also that week I'll create a podcast on how to upload your very first homework assignment. I will end with structure of each week's. Each week we'll have a practice lab. This section here is not due. I mean, as far as you don't need to turn it in, I do encourage you to do this before you do the homework. It usually has some notes or a website to go to that explains the concepts for that week. Has an example for that week practice, and also the original source code that you can download and view. When you do view the source code for each week, like I said, when you download XAMPP on your Mac or PC, it's going to put everything in the htdocs area. You can actually put a folder in your htdocs called source if you wanted to put all of your week's downloads here that you're testing. But we'll go over more of that next week. Don't worry about that this week. So again, the makeup of each week is a practice lab that you'll do. You do not have to turn it in, but I do encourage you doing it. Homework generally has, for most weeks, something for you to read and go over. Most of them are either going to be in the textbook or an online resource. Then it gives you the exercise. I generally give you the original source file to start with. And then I tell you what to do to upload it to your website. And then finally, each week, for the most part, you'll be submitting your full name and the title and the direct URL to your exercise page in your external website. I give you an example of the final of that week's homework, and also the source code. So, hope we have a great semester, and be looking forward to helping you learn PHP. This is a beginning PHP class, and so I'll be starting at the very beginning. You don't have to have any knowledge of PHP whatsoever. It's good to have basic knowledge of HTML, but I have had students that haven't had basic HTML knowledge and still survive the class. So I try to go slow enough to where everyone's on the same page, but if you do need help or do have questions, please don't hesitate to email me. So I hope you have a great semester.